Welcome to the time of review as we seek to solidify our reading from this last week. As I thought about this last week's reading, and the verse came to mind, and it's from Proverbs chapter 15, verse 3, where the wisdom writer makes this incredible statement about God. He says, "The eyes of the Lord are in every place, beholding the evil and the good," which means that God sees and God knows everything. Well, here we are in our reading is that Ezekiel has been taken captive, and he has a large refugee ministry going on by the rivers of Kabar there in Babylon. And what the refugees are saying is I don't understand why we're here. I don't understand why we're not in Jerusalem. I don't understand why our temple has been torn down. And so what Ezekiel is now charged with is you're going to show them exactly why they're here. So what the Lord does is God takes him in a vision back to Jerusalem, into the innermost courts. They're in the back rooms, and he shows them the high priest, the leaders, the rulers, that they are worshiping idols that are set up there in the temple. And so what he's showing his prophet is I'm going to show you what I see so you can tell the people that I see and that I know. And not only that, is God also gives a really long parable for Ezekiel to present to the people. And this parable is found in your reading this last week in Ezekiel chapter 16. And it's interesting because when you read a parable like this, you see that God does not abstain from using graphic pictures to capture the sinfulness of his people. So he tells this parable about this baby that was born, and the baby was not wanted, was cast away with his umbilical cord intact. And it talks about how God came past and he cleaned and swaddled up that baby. And then as the baby began to grow, he made a covenant with that baby and dressed her and took care of her, gave him even his splendor, clothed her. But as she continued to grow, what she did is she used the very things that he gave her to beautify her. She used those things to commit harlotry with other men. It gets so bad that she's not even paid for her acts of harlotry. She's actually paying people to serve her. So this picture of idolatry, how did Israel get to this place in their history? Well, what God is doing, he's giving some strong visuals like he did Jeremiah. He's given them to Ezekiel. This is exactly what the people have done to me. Further, he also tells Ezekiel after his wife dies, do not even shed a tear. Don't show any grief at the death of your wife. Why is God doing this? Because God is showing the children of Israel, you did this. You are where you are because of your brokenness in the covenant with me. You've not kept your part. Not only that, as I'm showing you that I've cared for you all along. I've cared for you from one generation to the next. And now you're dead. You're dead to me in many ways, that you are a refugee on the rivers of Kabar. And so he's having Ezekiel, don't even cry. Don't even mourn for the loss of your wife, because I am not mourning at the loss of my people at this point. They have driven to this place in their lives. It's not something that I force upon them, but it's something that they themselves have chosen. So then you also read in this week, it ends with when Jerusalem falls in the hands of the Babylonians, and how it's laid siege for like 18 months. And then it is the walls are broached. You have, except for a few people that are going to remain, they tear down the walls of the city. They tear down Israel's temple. Because what's going on here, again, is Israel thought we're in the land that God promised us. We can live any way we want to. That they are presumptuous. That we have this temple here in this land because if we're in the land God promised our forefathers, and we have the temple where he said his name, he's going to place his name. Therefore, God will not take us from our country. But that's not true. They had a false premise. They didn't understand that they were there and they were people of grace, that the land was a place for God to have a relationship with them as a people. It did matter to him how they lived. And so now you have in 586 BC, a historical event really happened, recorded by Ezekiel here, that Jerusalem is destroyed and they are taken into captivity. So what you had is you had Ezekiel, and these refugees were taken in captivity at 597 BC. And now at 586 BC, you have the destruction of Jerusalem. They've been out of the land for a bit, but what is it? Showing that there's nothing else to go back to. You will bear the punishment of your disobedience. And of course, we know they'll be there for 70 years. So as we're reading through Ezekiel, don't despair. as we continue looking at Jeremiah, don't despair. Because when God raises up prophets, God is raising up prophets because they are showing Israel as a mirror, look, this is who you are to me. And so when he commands them to do something strange, like Jeremiah, to make a yoke, to put it on his neck and carry it around and send a yoke to the Edomites, the Ammonites, and the Moabites and the peoples around them, to show them that no one will escape the seeing eye of God, because they rejoiced in the destruction of Jerusalem and even participated in themselves that they were going to bear the punishment one day. And so as we read these things, don't despair that you don't understand all that's going on. But what you have to know is God is responding to a disobedient and broken people. So what you see is God is better to man than man deserves, and we are worse off than we can imagine.